Welcome to the April 9th, 2018 meeting of Marquette City Commission. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you please rise with me and say the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, could we please have the roll call?
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Frazier? Here. Commissioner Plord?
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Here.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse?
Here.
And Mayor Campana.
Here. We have the agenda in front of us. We need an approval. Someone like to make a motion? Commissioner Plord?
I move that we approve the agenda as written.
Would there be a second? Commissioner Reynolds?
Second.
All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Passes 7-0. We come to announcements. The first announcement, I'm going to have Chief of Police Blake Rebalt make a presentation. Chief?
Thank you, Your Honor and Commissioners. If you remember at our last commission meeting, we recognized a group of individuals that were involved in a life-saving incident on Wright Street. And in that scenario, we explained there was a Good Samaritan who stopped by and assisted officers on the scene in CPR. And I would like to introduce that Good Samaritan as Mr. Terry Flynn. We were able to identify him through our media broadcast of the event. And it was brought to our attention that Mr. Flynn was the Good Samaritan that stopped by. And like we promised, we'd like to recognize him with a life-saving award from the mayor and applaud him on taking the time and effort to stop and assist our officers and other officers at the scene. Mr. Flynn is a volunteer fireman for the Sands Township EMS first responders. Heard the page come out as he was going to pick up his daughter from school, turned around, responded to the location, parked, got out, and assisted our officers in CPR and recovery. So that, to me, is a true hero and very well deserving of a life-saving award. So.
Mr. Flynn, on behalf of the City of Marquette, I'm happy and proud to present this certificate that we have for you. It's a life-saving award presented to Terry Flynn for his life-saving efforts on March 2nd, 2018. We're glad you did this, and we're glad that you're an EMS volunteer. Thank you for serving your community. Thank you. Okay. Still with announcements. In the City of Marquette, this year there will be 2 seats available on each the City Commission and the Board of Light and Power. Depending on how many individuals file as candidates, these seats may appear on the August ballot. Regardless, there will be other items, of course, including statewide issues on the August ballot. The deadline for filing as a 2018 candidate for City Commission or Board of Light and Power is by 4 p.m. on April 24th. Paperwork can be picked up at the City Clerk's office here in this building. That was where you'll have the nominating petition packets, and that will have all the information that you will need to fill out. Next, we're going to move to boards and committees. Tonight, we're welcoming 4 people, 4 new members of committees. If I could meet you at the podium up to my right, we have Eric Brooks on the Planning Commission, Carolyn McDonald for the Board of Review, David Rayom to the Local Development Finance Authority, and Michael Trickey to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. We want to thank you. The city wants to thank you people for volunteering your time. It's people like you that come forward and volunteer your time so that serve on these committees, and these committees advise the city, and it helps make Marquette a better place. So we appreciate you giving up your free time and doing this. We have Eric Brooks to the Planning Commission. Eric, I'm going to give you this pin. This is the Marquette pin. Wear it proudly. It signifies you as being a volunteer for the city.
Okay, thank you.
There you are. We have Carolyn McDonald, who's serving on the Board of Review. Carolyn, thank you very much. And Dave Riom to the Local Development Finance Authority. Dave, thank you. And we have Michael Trickey to the Parks and Rec, who cannot make it here tonight. I don't see Mike. Okay, now we're going to do the oaths.
Carolyn McDonald, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and the Charter of the City of Marquette, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Board of Review of the City of Marquette according to the best of my ability. Sign it. Thanks.
I, David Rayholm, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and the Charter of the City of Marquette, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Finance Authority of the City of Marquette according to the best of my ability.
Want to give you that one for your records? Good to go.
Thank you. Tonight, we'd also like to recognize a couple of outgoing members of committees. Two people. The first is Elizabeth Drum, from serving on the Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee. Is Elizabeth here? And Jason Schneider of the LDFA. Jason, if you guys could both come up here, get in front of the cameras so everybody can see you. City would like to thank you for your efforts over the past number of years. I mean, your time, your expertise went into helping these committees make decisions, and these decisions help Marquette. So we do appreciate everything you do. We understand, you know, other things you got to be moving on, but maybe at some point you can come back and help us out again. In appreciation for all you've done, we got a couple certificates here. Certificate of appreciation for volunteer effort on your committee. Thank you for your hard work and dedication serving the citizens of this community. We have one for Elizabeth. Elizabeth, thank you very much. I'm going to give you this.
I appreciate it.
And Jason, former city commissioner Jason Schneider, thank you. Also, we have some dress t-shirts here. You wear these only at the finest places in town when you go out. Now, we have them in gray and blue. If you don't like blue, you can get gray. And if the size doesn't fit, you can get a different size. Just contact our office, okay? So, they're both mediums.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah,
Cool.
figure it out. Yeah, I don't know what size you wear, but
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you. Thank you very much for your service. We appreciate what you've done. Thank you. Next, we have one appointment tonight. That appointment is Orville Dishnoff to the Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee for term expiring 4/1/21, 2021. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Reynolds.
I move that we appoint Orville Dishno to the Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee for a term ending April 1st, 2021.
Would there be a second? Commissioner Schlegel.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion, seeing none. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? That carries 7-0. Next, we have 3 reappointments. I have Barbara Hine to the Election Board for term expiring 4/11/2022. Maura Davenport to the Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee for term expiring 4/1/21. And Phil Watts to the Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee for term ending 4/1/2021. Do I see a motion? Commissioner Reynolds.
I move that we reappoint Barbara Hine to the Election Board for a term ending April 11th, 2020. Maura Davenport to the Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee for a term ending April 1st, 2021. And Philip Watts to the Presque Isle Advisory Committee for a term ending April 1st, 2021.
Would there be a second? Commissioner Frazier.
Second.
Discussion, seeing none. Discussion, Commissioner Smith.
I believe Ms. Reynolds meant to say 4/11/22 for Barbara Hine. I'm sorry. You said of 20. Just want to make sure that's correct in the minutes.
Thank you. Yes, we do have. City Clerk, got it? Thank you. Okay. Discussion, comments, none. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? That also carries 7-0. Next, we come to our first public comment of the evening. Public comment is when residents may address the commission. If you wish to reserve time to speak on an upcoming agenda item, let us know now. Or if you just wish to speak to us, this would be your time. You have 3 minutes. We need your name and home address. I'm going to open public comment. Does anybody wish to address the commission at this time?
David Allen, 805 North Front Street. I'm here with League of Women Voters Observer Corps, and I just wanted to mention, the mayor last month asked if there was going to be an opportunity to hear back from us what we're doing with the observing. And we've got about 9 members observing different governmental entities. We're about to start putting this together into either a quarterly or a monthly newsletter of some sort where we'll review what's happened and what's coming up for the various groups that we're doing. So I just want to make you aware of that, and we'll keep you apprised of where that will be available. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Matt Ludberger, 1406 Garfield Ave here in the city of Marquette. I guess first, let me state by, please make sure microphones are on and you guys are talking into them. Mr. Mayor, you have come a long way. You've consistently put the microphone on and chatted into it, and thank you. You make a great level for the recording. There are a number of times, however, longer speakers, you can't necessarily hear anything you're saying. Even with the volume turned up. So please remember this when you're speaking into the microphone. That's my administrative thought of this. To Mr. Schlegel, I didn't get a chance to say welcome, but welcome to the community, to the City Commission. My only interaction with you has ever been on the planning board. When I walked in, I tried to get vegetable gardens put into the new hospital, and you had a moment where you had to get up and walk out and be voted back in because of a conflict of interest. It's that conflict of interest, that integrity that I look forward to. And on that note, I'd like to also speak on item number 10, or no, not 10, sorry, the second from last one, 12, capital improvement. In a way, the appearance of, I guess, bias is what every community has to fight against. And you showed a great example of that. In this item coming up, however, Mr. Stonehouse, you have a direct responsibility to the group that's receiving these funds. That to me seems like a conflict of interest. That's all I'm going to say about it right now. At the same time, the hospital road that you guys are discussing further on, That's been needing to be done a long time ago. Personally, I don't understand why this wasn't part of the funds dedicated, like we have funds dedicated for municipality center or the roundabouts, coming from Marquette General. At the same time, I understand it's a negotiation tact that without a FOIA request, we're never going to find out what Dr. Coyne negotiated with MGH. At this point, though, what you're telling all the nurses and all the patients and everybody who uses that road, you're not valuable enough to us. Please remember that. This is a working, tax-paying facility. It is one of our largest employers in town. Please remember that they use the road every single day, all this time that it's delayed. And honestly, the money's going into a fund. It's not going into an actual capital improvement. Time's almost up. I'd like to speak on that. Please keep in mind the integrity of this community. It's a small town. I understand how small towns work. Maybe somebody's brother's uncle's cousin has a project for you. Please, this is one of those times we've already allocated the funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Frank Jeff Verdo, 350 East Ridge, Marquette, to speak on items 6 and 12. These are my opinions. We thank the Commission for instituting my recommendation to place public comment before presentations and the consent agenda so we may speak to those items ahead of time. Public comment should also precede board appointments for the same reason. March 26th, I said, quote, "At 2 recent meetings, several women voiced their concern over the fluoridation of our water." March 12th, the chair responded only based on positive remarks he heard gathered about fluoride from dentists. Bothersome was the way he ignored what seemed like sound medical research on why fluoride is dangerous. You're aware that when I comment against something, my remarks almost always take the opposing viewpoint into consideration. The chair was asked to account for that research instead of using the familiar commission tactic of only telling the public what it wants us to hear. More compelling research was cited tonight, being March 26th. As is, those residents wasted their time by showing up, end quotes. Rather than expound, the chair mentioned the same sources, assuring us that there's no problem with the fluoride that's been used for 20 to 30 years. It's safe, it's effective, every dentist I've talked to encourages it, it's advocated by the ADA and MIDA, end quotes. I'm no expert, and I love the taste of our water, but note that all of the chair's references are from the same school. They're 100% dental. He ignored my advice by neglecting to account for opposing viewpoints and the compelling research mere minutes after he was reminded to do so. He overlooked the specific details, just as he does on other public comments, begging the question as to what he's here for besides running our meetings. Why does he still not seem to absorb what's said in his presence? Mr. Plord is thanked for undertaking the painstaking research on fluoride as well as for his kind remarks of March 26th. Why not the chair, though? The one who utters opinions without accounting for the findings of a Nobel Prize winner and even pharmacological experts. The chair's habitual diversions cause residents to return to re-clarify for him, which runs us around in perpetual, very frustrating and time-consuming circles. If he heeded our advice, he'd come across as more professional and we'd progress over time. Instead, he's not digesting even advice that's intended to help. All the nice things I said about Marquette on March 26th blew right by him. Our chance to comment on consent items, our shared concern about glass recycling, the pricelessness of Marquette, our good drinking water, and the best part of every trip is returning here. He'd rather fixate on one sentence about a technician in the back room, all while ignoring my many statements regarding matters that are far more important to a greater number of constituents. And he did this in addition to mistreating the folks who spoke up against fluoride.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone else wish to address the commission? Seeing none, we're going to close public comment. We're going to move to presentations. We have one presentation tonight. We have Mr. Dan Emmendorfer here, who's going to talk on the Investment Advisory Board. Dan, if you would.
Thank you. I'm the chairman of the Investment Advisory Board. I'm here to give my annual update to the City Commission on our progress from this advisory board. For those of you who don't know, this advisory board was established back in 1980 by the City Commission. We are governed by the statutes of Public Act 20 and as amended of 1943. Our sole purpose is to invest the city public funds with the highest investment returns on the money, with safety as a strong consideration or priority to meet this daily cash flow needs of the city, and all while within following state statutes and local ordinances on the investment of these public funds. Our background: we are a 5-member board. Currently, we have 1 vacancy, so if you have an interest in serving the public service and investments, you're welcome to join us. We're looking for other applicants. Applications can be sought at the city manager's office or on the public website. With that, our other 4 members, we have Dr. Dave Rayholm, who is the Dean of the Business College at Northern Michigan University, who's also on another board for us. And we have Mary Schlitt, who is the city treasurer, and then Gary Simpson, the city finance officer. By virtue of the city statutes, they're on our board, and of course myself, the chairman. Our meetings are held quarterly. We usually meet down here at the City Hall, usually at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the meetings last 45 minutes to an hour. So if you have an interest and want to see our activities, please join us. Next. Investment policy. Our investment policy, again, was established in accordance with Public Act 20, adopted by the City Commission in 1997. This current policy, we've updated and amended both in 2008 and 2014 to keep current. And then the investment of public funds are invested on strict adherence to the statutes and local and governmental ordinances, as stated. A nice accomplishment for our board is in 2015, our city investment policy itself received an excellence award by the Association of Treasurers of both the United States and Canada. So the investment policy itself was given an award, which is a nice feat. And then in January 31st of this year, our current breakdown of our investments is listed above, so you can see our different investments on this portfolio, a little over $21 million in assets, and the current yield of 0.98% up to for the last year. And then, if you're interested, our next meeting is June 13th of this year, so you're welcome to attend. Our goals are to continually review the investments for their ongoing maturity dates, the status, and the yield of the portfolio, all in consideration of current market conditions. We want to monitor and analyze the needs of using the prudent investor rule, which just basically says you would invest it as if it were in accordance with the ideals of what the needs of the beneficiaries are, in this case the public here, the city of Marquette, and our citizens. We also do a city semi-annual review of our special rate assessment, and both the rate on special assessments if need be, and the payment schedules that we may offer citizens under a special assessment. That's done semi-annually. Our accomplishments. For 31 straight years, Marquette has received a Certificate of Excellence in Reporting to the CAFE board for the Finance Authority. And so thank you, Gary and Mary, for doing a good job on the reporting there. And then our Marquette continues to retain and get a low score, a low indicator score, which is a very strong indicator of our fiscal condition on this portfolio at any given point in time. So with that, I give my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Emmendorfer. Do we have any questions here? Commissioner Plord?
Just a comment, Your Honor. I want to thank the committee and thank you, Dave Rayon, for joining the committee and being part of this. A number of us were at the Michigan Municipal League Conference back in March, and we had several conversations with many people from different cities, and all we heard was how well Marquette was doing. How did you do this and how do you do that? And all we heard was how well Marquette was doing. So thank you so much for your efforts. What we see here really is happening, and it's very much appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you for your kind comments and feedback.
No, we got to thank you for you and your committee, and Gary and our Mary, the treasurer, for watching over our finances. Obviously, very important to the city, and the fact that you've had 31 years of certificate of excellence says a lot. So we do appreciate it. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, Paul, did you? Thank you. Tonight we have two public hearings. The first public hearing is in regards to ordinance number 663, which is the pedestrian passage on sidewalks. City Clerk, could you please give us some background?
Thank you, Mayor. Background. The proposed ordinance, number 663, would amend Marquette City Code Section 42-30, which regulates the amount of sidewalk space that must be maintained for free passage of pedestrians in the city. This proposal clarifies that local sidewalks must be maintained in compliance with provisions of the Americans with Disabilities Act. All changes to city code must be made via ordinance and adopted following a public hearing. Tonight's public hearing was scheduled during the Commission's March 26th meeting. Fiscal effect, none by this action. Recommendation, adopt ordinance number 663, pedestrian passage on sidewalks. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to open the public hearing. Mr. Verito, I believe you wanted to speak to this.
Frank Ciaferdo, 350 East Ridge, Marquette. These are my opinions. Last month, a bar held an anniversary party. Temporary fencing was erected from their front door clear to the Washington Street sidewalk, allowing no passage for wheelchairs or anyone else for that matter. Our only choices were to jaywalk to the other side of the road or to use the roadway near the most dangerous intersection in town. If Section 42-30 were approved, would such a business be required to provide the temporary plank sidewalk with substantial railings as mentioned in the agenda supplement? More prevalent are the outdoor dining tables that our entrepreneurs pay good money to provide for their patrons. While this is encouraged, some of those setups doubtfully allow the required 6 feet for passage. How do you intend to enforce this ordinance, not just for restaurants, but also for temporary uses of our sidewalks, such as business anniversary parties and all other events for which the adjacent street is not closed? Any exemptions to the ordinance need to be listed.
Okay, we're going to close public hearing. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Frazier.
I recommend we accept ordinance number 663, pedestrian passage on sidewalks.
Is there a second? Commissioner Smith.
Second.
Comments? Commissioner Smith, any? Commissioners? Commissioner Plort.
One thing, Your Honor, I think that should be mentioned is this ordinance will bring us in line with ADA requirements. And for the future, any ADA requirements that may be changed, this ordinance will be allowed to be changed with it. So this ordinance is actually becoming a little more flexible and, again, more in tune with Americans with the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Thank you. Comments? More? Any? It's a roll call vote. City Clerk?
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Frazier?
Yep.
Commissioner Plord?
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Commissioner Schlegel?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse?
Yes.
And Mayor Campana.
Yes, passes 7-0. Next, we move to our second public hearing, which is ordinance 664, the outdoor merchandise displays. City Clerk, could you please give us that background?
Thank you, Mayor. Background. The proposed ordinance, number 664, would establish a process by which businesses within the boundaries of the Downtown Development Authority could temporarily place outdoor merchandise displays. These displays would be for the purpose of displaying, exhibiting, or offering for sale merchandise sold by an adjacent business. All changes to city code must be made via ordinance and adopted following a public hearing. Tonight's public hearing was scheduled during the Commission's March 26th meeting. Fiscal effect, none by this action. Recommendation, adopt ordinance number 664, outdoor merchandise displays, and approve the fee resolution and direct the mayor and clerk to sign it. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. We're going to open this public hearing. Does anybody wish to address us on this item?
I'm Mona Lang. I'm here representing the Downtown Development Authority. And my board, the Downtown Development Authority Board, took formal action to make this request of the City Commission. As it currently stands, the city regulations prohibit any outdoor display or any outdoor merchandise and restricts any business to a complete enclosed building. And as we've moved into different planning and different consultants, we know that street activity helps to provide a vibrant atmosphere and environment. And so I think it's important for our merchants. It really does help them to strengthen their business. They believe to be able to have a display outside, it brings in interest and it brings in potential customers. So I'd like to encourage you to move forward to adopt this process. City staff has been wonderful working with us to create a permit system. We did some research with some other communities, followed some of their examples. I guess my only comment would be as far as the recommended fee. I think it might be a little bit steep for some small businesses for the amount of time that they're able to put a rack out in front of their storefront. So I thank you for your consideration and look forward to moving forward with this process for the summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, Matt Lutenberger, 1406 Garfield Ave here in Marquette. I just have a quick comment on, as much as I do want to encourage businesses and the storefronts being extended with product in the summertime, it's vital. I love that about our city. I do encourage it. What I'm here to, I guess, relay is a story where I was walking down the street of one of these sidewalks with a 4-year-old girl hand in hand, and we had to unhook hands and wait for pedestrians to walk by more frequently than just once or twice. And so this is from Getz's up and around the corner onto Washington. So I guess what I'm asking is, and I haven't read the full ordinance, so I don't know if you have addressed this, and I'm sorry for bringing that up, but I will say from my own personal experience, it would be nice if parking were not allowed if sidewalk sales were happening or merchandise was put on the sidewalks, if they would give up their parking spot, allocated parking spot in front of their locations to either dedicate towards a plank or a actual, that's where they have their sidewalk sale. I understand there's a lot of safety recognitions that have to be taken into place. I'm hoping that you can address the one where if you're walking down the street with a young child or an elderly family member, that 2 people wide do not get disrupted, that possibly 3 or 4 people could walk down our streets safely. That's my only consideration. So if you could close off the roads while having sidewalk sales, that's great. I don't mind that. Put it down to 1 lanes and have alternative routes put around the city. We are a small downtown. We've done it before for other events. A sidewalk sale can be very dangerous. That's the bottom line. I know it brings in money and I know it brings in gawkers, and that's great, but for the average pedestrian tourist who's walking around who will never come back and they have to let go of their daughter just to walk down the street, that's something you guys should probably address. And please, if you already have, thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Seeing none, we're going to close this public hearing. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Smith.
I move that we adopt ordinance number 664, outdoor merchandise displays, and approve the fee resolution and direct the mayor and clerk to sign it.
Commissioner Frazier.
Second.
Commissioner Smith, any comments? Commissioner Frazier, any comments?
I want to understand for the city manager, this is under codes of ADA capability, so, you know, streets cannot be, sidewalks cannot be blocked. And also, as far as property, it's only in city sidewalk property, as far as I know. It's not to their own property. It's just city sidewalks, like as the person recommended on sidewalks, it's a fee. And a lot of people I know in downtown business, they think it's great because they want to display their merchandise forever. So I think it's great.
Commissioner Reynolds.
As I read through this too, I also kind of thought $110 seemed like a lot for a sign. So I don't know if that's a Chris question or the city manager, but how did we come upon this amount of money to determine for this permit?
It is a question that Chris can answer. However, the fee is based on the cost of processing the application precisely, almost precisely. And fortunately for us, Chris has it all broken down, and I think she can, if you need more detail, we can offer that.
Yeah, I would like that.
The cost started out being very comparable to the sidewalk cafe licensing procedure, without alcohol, of course, with department review and all the participation of staff and follow-up. Right now, the fee for a sidewalk cafe without alcohol is $130. And it's broken down, I can break it down for you by portion of hour. So we went to a bit lower cost because we didn't have to have as much review and enforcement. And frankly, it's a requirement to provide with the application a drawing of where you intend to put your displays. It's basically based on safety and following up on the measures that we normally do with a business license.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Commissioner Stonehouse.
I'm troubled too by the cost, and had a chance to meet a little bit with the city clerk and look over how the cost structure came together. And while I think there's much in there that makes a great deal of sense, I think there's also much in there that is perhaps far above what it should be. And I think that we really need to look at how we streamline things, how we make things more efficient, how we can avoid passing things along department to department who do not necessarily always add value to that process. So I'm troubled trying to support this ordinance because of that cost that I think is, in this case, prohibitively high.
I do appreciate our staff looking this over and coming up with the recommendation and doing the paperwork. But having owned a business, I think that $110 is too much. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot. I think that the process is too complicated here. I don't want to use the word overkill, but I think that's a term. I think that I'm all in favor of $0 or $25 at the most. There's no reason to hit these merchants. All they're doing is putting a table of stuff 12 square feet in front of their building, which I don't think is enough display area anyway. I wish there were some more merchants here tonight to express their views. I don't think there are any. I'm sure we'll hear about it as we go along. 12 square feet is not a lot. $110 is a lot. I understand there's cost involved in this, but why does it have to be so complicated? Why can't someone just hand a piece of paper and say, I'm going to do it? Charge them 10 to 25 at the most. even that, these people are paying, what is it, 2 mils to the DDA on top of their regular taxes. I mean, let's give them a break. They're trying to make this town more appealing, more vibrant, and people who want these displays tend to think that that makes our city a little more special. It's not going to get junked up. We're not going to have overflowing displays because they are regulated. I'm in favor of not charging that much, and I know it goes against what we always do, but I'm not in favor of it. I'm not in favor of anything over $25, and to me, that's too much. That's my opinion. Anybody else? Commissioner Schlegel.
I have to appreciate where you guys are going with this. At the same time, we have to realize that it's not just the processing fee the day of or the yearly processing fee, which has been in place for every other issue that we have to apply for. Most, all, if I'm not mistaken, permits and things are based off of how much it's going to take for the staff to generate that said piece of paper. Yeah, could it be easier? Of course, but at the same time, we have to take into consideration that somebody's going to have to police this as well to make sure that it's not just somebody going out there and saying they're going to adhere to the spatial regulations and then taking up more space, making sure that it is ADA compliant. And I don't believe, if I'm not mistaken, Mana, that the DDA is not policing this. It's up to the city, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So that is something that we need to keep in mind that, I'm not going to say it's going to be every day. There's not going to be some guy out there with a tape measure making sure it's down to the inch or the foot, but it's going to have to be policed to a certain degree. Over $100, is that too much? Probably. It's a good start, I think, right now. That's I'd like to see it a little bit less, but the fact is it's based off of a process that we use for every other permitting process, and I think that to set a precedence here might not be a good idea.
Commissioner Plort.
I'm going to echo Commissioner Schlegel's comments and add, yeah, there is a fair amount of administrative work that needs to be done. Record keeping, for example, that doesn't get mentioned. There has to be documentation at the city level. If a citizen calls the city and says, so-and-so has a display out, what about that? What have you guys done? How do we know that it's actually 12 square feet? How do we know that it's where it's supposed to be or not where it's not supposed to be? Somebody is going to have to police that. Somebody is going to have to work with it. And the fee looks to me to be pretty much in consistent with other fees along these lines that we've had. I can see where the fee was figured out. I also want to point out, too, that it is for May 1st through October 31st. And another thing I want to point out, the Downtown Development Authority, the member businesses don't seem to have a problem with this fee, and I'm sure that you studied it, and I'm sure you looked at it very, very closely, and they seem to believe that it's fair. Personally, I don't see a problem with it. The last thing I want to say, though, is it's been my experience that the city has been very, very open to specific cases and individual cases. And if a business can justify with the city manager's office or with another office, a proper office, that for their business, the $110 fee is too much, the city will certainly listen. Will they necessarily automatically change it? I'm not saying that, no. But I am saying that the city will certainly listen. And I agree with Commissioner Schlegel when he says this is a good start. And one of the things we've done, and we did it today, as we look at new ordinances and changes in different laws, we always take a look at it. And if it's not working, we're very good at changing it. And so I think it's a pretty good start. So I support it as it's written.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Well, it's kind of where I was going as to what you mentioned, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify something, too, that Commissioner Plord said. The $110, if I'm correct, was a fee determined by the city and not the DDA business owners.
Correct.
So that it's not necessarily that they are on board with that fee. We don't necessarily know their opinion on it, but that's all I wanted to clarify with that. But we're talking we don't have a very big season up here to be putting stuff outside, and it just seems to me that it's a lot of money for that time. Now I remember my second question. So every year we do the budgets and we sit down and we determine how much money we're going to make off of such a permit for the city. Do we have any idea how many of these we would put in our budget? Do we think we would make, such as like when we always figure out our budgets when we do a site plan review, we figure out that we're gonna make $5,000 towards this, and that's how much money to put towards it. So I'm wondering, are we talking $220 next year that gets added to our city clerk budget, or are we talking $1,000?
I have asked Mana for a list of those people that would be interested. So until I receive that list, or until this ordinance goes somewhere, I wouldn't have a firm idea.
Okay. Because I kind of wonder if there's some kind of other option. I don't know what that is, but if we're only talking a couple people for this year, I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I agree with you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Stonehouse.
One more comment shot, I guess. You know, I had a chance to see the worksheet that was put together on how the numbers came up. And here's who takes a piece of this $110. The clerk's office obviously have a big role to play, the treasurer's office, the code enforcement office, the police office, and the fire office. Now, wait a minute. If you were a business trying to run like that, you'd be out of business. So somehow you need to say, how do we make this value added? How do we make it one-stop shopping? And how do we make it and drive the price down as cheaply as we can and still cover the costs of the administration? And do we have administration there that is simply not needed for what is actually being accomplished? Those are the issues that I think need to be looked at and need to be addressed. Maybe it works out to be 110. Maybe it works out to be 200. Maybe it works out to be $25. But we really need to drill this kind of thing down, because the people down there at our business community are the ones keeping the city alive and keeping our downtown vibrant. And we need to say, how can we fuel that? And while this is certainly a small way of doing that, it does represent a philosophy and a methodology that can potentially make it more valuable for everybody. No more comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Frazier.
I agree with Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem on the fees. I agree is a little high. I mean, the city has to work out their numbers. But I agree it might be a little overkill having so many people look at something. Might be as, I'm not an expert. Maybe as simple as a zoning guy, the clerk's office, and maybe figure out a way to make the fee. I don't think $25 probably is enough, but I think less than $100 would be good. You know, because I know a business owner on Third Street that likes to display outside when they get a chance, but they weren't allowed to do it during certain days, and they complained about other businesses being allowed to do it. So they'd be definitely interested, I think, and they also help out the community a lot of stuff, and they don't put stuff on. They put stuff against their building basically, so not in the way of anybody. So I think it's a good thing to pass the ordinance and look, but maybe look at differing the cost maybe a little bit.
I would like to ask Ms. Lang a question. Come up here so we can answer it. It'll probably be a two-word answer. Last summer when we did a smoke and mirrors and we got the ability to display for merchandise for store owners, did they have to fill out any application?
No, what we did is actually just ask them to email us, and then I just submitted it to the city clerk's office or to zoning, because at that point what we were doing is actually, the only way we could get around it is to consider it to be a event. So we declared every day a sidewalk sale day event.
So you just took their name?
We took their name, yeah, and, well, they obviously sent the name and the address to the zoning, so they knew who was part of our event.
Did you collect any money?
No.
Okay. No paperwork, no money. I'm liking this. I still say I think this is too complicated. I mean, why can't we just hand this piece of paper and say, I'm doing this? And then why can't we put the enforcement, if you want to call it that, on the DDA? Why does the city have to do it?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you, yeah.
Well,
would the DDA do it?
Well, first of all, I mean, I don't know if we can enforce a city ordinance unless we're appointed to do so. I mean, that would be a Ron question, I would assume.
You just bring the issue up to the police. If somebody's overstepping their boundaries, you say, hey, I'm telling the police.
Well, no, I'd call them and tell them to move
yeah.
it. I mean,
Yeah,
normally
first,
I'd say,
thank you.
yeah. I mean, that would be the simple way to do it.
Would the DDA be willing to do that?
I would assume we would. I mean, we want this,
You want it to work?
want this process, so,
Okay.
I mean, I assume we would.
I don't want to put you on the spot, you know.
Well, I mean, I really can't answer that.
Okay.
I mean, I can't answer that. I mean, I have a board of directors, certainly. I would assume that we can do that. Certainly, we want to ensure that, well, you know, our goal is to provide an opportunity for merchants to be able to do this. Secondly, to ensure that there is passable streets, that there is handicap access. And third, to develop some type of process. I mean, we don't want it to look like a flea market, right? So we want there to be some type of control on the amount of display. I mean, we don't want them putting their whole store out on the sidewalk, to be honest, but enough to create an interesting environment.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
You done?
Done.
Okay.
For now. Not yet. You know, I just think that we need to send a statement to the merchants in the city that we appreciate what they do and we encourage them to do what they do. And we can't be hitting them up with fees every time they turn around. $115 is a lot of money. You know, if you have to pay it, it's a lot of money. As far as are they happy with it, we had the head of the DDA who just says she thinks it's a little high. I'm hoping that that reflects the thoughts of the merchants. I'm sure we'll hear about it. The question is now, how many merchants will say, I'm not going to pay it. So I'm not going to pay it to display, and they don't do it. I still believe that having a display, a table out in front of your building with your product on it, adds a bit of value to the city, a little bit of charm. Another thing is, let us not forget that this is that table isn't really generating. It's not like a food table where people are going to sit down and eat, and then you're making money that way. It's basically what it does is it draws people in. So it's not a real money making thing. So I'm still, if it was me, I'd say write on a piece of paper that you're going to do it, hand it in, and we're not charging you anything. That's my thought. City manager might have a different thought.
Not entirely. Honestly, whatever fee you want to set, we'll work with that. But to assume that there's no cost in doing this, I think is a mistake. The reality is that if you hand someone a piece of paper, or someone hands us a piece of paper and says we're going to do this, they'll do whatever they want, and that's where we run into problems. The reason for this ordinance, or the struggle to create this ordinance, was because of just that. Store owners doing what they wanted, when they wanted, where they wanted, on any piece of city property they could find that was anywhere near their store, and it was blocking sidewalks. Problems led to this, which is why we created the ordinance. And even though there's a fee set with processing that ordinance, there's additional work, like Commissioner Slago mentioned, that's the policing of it, which by this ordinance we are going to have to do. We would have been more than happy as a city to let the DDA handle this. That's where we started. And we ended up here with us taking the responsibility for permitting it and then managing it and enforcing it. I understand that the fee may be restrictive to some people, but it's not punitive. It's not garnered in any way to be above what it costs. And if anything, from my opinion, it's probably less than what we should be charging. That's all.
If we have a set of rules, you can't go against the rules. Here's a sheet of paper that I'm going to do it, and then you give me a sheet of paper showing the rules.
Somebody has to enforce it. They go against the rules. They do.
But if they go against the rules, then you fine them.
That's where the cost comes from.
Yeah, you get the fine.
No, well,
I know.
I said my part. You guys do what you want.
Anybody else? I'm a lone duck here. Commissioner Smith.
Obviously, it's a hot topic going on right now. I feel a little responsible since I made the motion. I think this is an issue I'm thinking maybe we should table for a later meeting, because I think maybe it'd be good for us as a commission to discuss the fee structure and how that works overall. I really don't feel comfortable making a decision just on this fee without looking at all the other fees and the costs associated. That's just how I feel. If we're going to make a decision on how much this instance costs, this permitting, we've got to look at it all.
I'll go one more round. I'll go one more round with you.
Commissioner Plord.
I just feel it's important to point out that it doesn't really matter who calls the police. If the police are involved, the city is enforcing it. And that's why the fee is there. And I agree with the city manager, with the structure of this ordinance, it's so important to have it so that businesses can understand what they can do and what they can't do and keep everything orderly. We've already had a public comment that said that during sidewalk sales and such, they've had issues as far as traversing the sidewalks. We know that that's true, and we've seen it. And so this is going to help control that. And the city manager mentioned that without this kind of structure, people will do whatever they think they can get away with. We also have seen that, and we know that to be true as well. So the Downtown Development Authority likes the ordinance. City of Marquette, city offices like the ordinance. I like the ordinance. I think, like as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to support it as it's written.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understand this correctly, because I think I understand it differently. So when we say policing, it's not the police that come around. This is code enforcement and zoning, correct? That come around at this point?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't losing it. Okay. So as to the suggestion made by Commissioner Smith of tabling, the only problem I would have with that is that I think that these people want to do it for this season. And I think that for May, I think it would be important to do, unless we could speed this up to the next actual meeting, which I don't think we can go through our entire fee structure by that time. With that being said, at this point, I am going to continue with how the mayor feels, and unless it's a more reasonable price, our DDA is telling us that merchants think it's a little high, and I think that's what we have to respect. So I will be voting no if that is the case.
Thank you. Commissioner Schlegel.
It's almost like we're under the impression that we're forcing people to pay this $110 to put something outside, that they're selling merchandise. If they don't want to pay the fee, they don't have to pay the fee. We're looking at, every business has the right to accept or deny it and see what happens for the next season. I don't think that there's any reason for us to sit on this for another month or so and interrupt those businesses that are interested in taking advantage of this. If you're going to put something outside your business, it's because you want to make money off of it, whether it's to get other people in your business to pick up something else at the register or throughout the store, or to sell exactly what's out there. It is for sale, it is for profit, and if they don't think that they're going to make $110 off of this for the first season, or the 115, excuse me, if that's what it is, then I would highly recommend not doing it. That would be bad business. So I guess, I'm all for this. I'm all for, we talked about it last year before when the Planning Commission brought other issues to the City Commission about allowing all access to sidewalks and basically having a carte blanche saying, go ahead and put what you want out there. Growing up with my father who was confined to either crutches or to a wheelchair, I know what it's like to go through downtown areas or public spaces and have to deal with obstacles. So it's important that we police this issue. And I'm going to use the word again. I know it's, we're not going to sit there and slap cuffs on people, but it's important that we make sure that they're not taking the mile if we give them the inch. So, and quite honestly, you know, I think, Mana, you're on the right track there with, you're going to call them and say, hey, you guys got to scale this back a little bit. I know that your crew is out there every morning keeping our city in insanely clean condition, and if people are setting things up and your staff is working around them, that they might suggest to you to go ahead and say, hey, you know, those guys are putting a little bit much out there, that you'd be happy to make that phone call, or at least give it to city officials to do that as well, whoever it might be. But, you know, nobody's going to tell these people that you know, don't put it outside. Don't try and sell it if you're not going to make money off of it. It's $110. I'm all for business. Don't get me wrong on that. Don't try and push me in a corner. But I want to make sure that this is what's right for everybody in the city, not just a small, you know, or a fraction of it, or a half, or anything. It's right for everybody. Thank you.
Commissioner Frazier.
How about we go with a fee of $99? I mean, because that's what you always see for sales everywhere. Is always, you don't say up the big dollar. You always say, you know, $1, like $99 for anything. That's what we say, $99. That way, our city manager's happy, his fees get taken care of, and also we're happy it's not a $110 fee. So they think they're getting a great deal because it says $110 on sale for $99. That's what I think we should do.
Commissioner Smith.
I would like to amend my motion to reduce the fee to $55. And I would like to discuss this, the entire fee schedule at a future date. So that could be changed in the future, but I would like to get it open and running for this season. Amending my motion to a $55 fee per business.
So you want to amend it?
Yes, sir.
So then we need to talk about that. Do we have a second to that amendment? Commissioner Reynolds.
Second.
Seconder got to do it.
Discussion on it.
Who made the original?
I did.
Commissioner Smith, any discussion on that?
No further discussion.
No.
I think 55 is too much.
But to Jenna's motion and to her point, she was just saying to get this off the ground and running. I think 55 would be fair to us to get going. And when budget season comes around in July, we have to talk about all these fees again. When we sit down and go through every single one. That's why I said yes.
Commissioner Plard.
I don't agree with the change, but I do agree with the fact that the ordinance needs to be put in place in time for the season, and so in that case, I would support it.
Everybody wants to go with 55. Well, we have to vote on that. That's the motion. I have to discuss this. I think it's too high. You know, we're trying to do something for our merchants here. We're talking 12 square feet of display. Do you know how much that is? It's not a lot. It's not a lot. They're not necessarily making money off it. It adds to the city. I think it's too complicated. I don't think it should be that high. That is the motion. If there's no more comment on the amendment, we vote on the amendment. Correct, Ron?
Right, this is just you're
Just-
amending the resolution language.
Yes.
Just have to vote on that.
255.
Yes.
Okay. We're voting to amend the resolution to not be 110, but to be 55. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? No. 6-1. It passes. Now we're back to the
You're back to the original
Motion.
motion
As amended.
So you're going to vote on the ordinance as is, that hasn't changed, and the resolution at the same time with the $55 figure. And that's by roll call now.
It's by roll call. And Commissioner Smith, you made the original motion. Are you still with that?
Yes.
And Commissioner Frazier? Any other comment? Okay, this will be a roll call vote. City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Frazier?
Yes.
Commissioner Plord,
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Yes.
Commissioner Schlegel,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse,
Yes.
Mayor Campana.
No. Passes 6-1.
I'm just happy it passed. Been working on this for 2 years.
Next, we come to our consent agenda for the evening. Do we have a motion?
I don't like the way they mono backdoored me, though.
Commissioner Reynolds.
I move that the consent agenda be approved.
Would there be a second? Commissioner Schlegel.
Second.
Discussion none. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? Carries 7-0. Our next item is an unfinished business item. It's the Cayman Trails Network Storage Lease Agreement. City Clerk, could you please give us the background?
Thank you, sir. Background. The Nocamanon Trails Network Council, NTN, has requested the City Commission consider a lease agreement for storage space at Lakeview Arena. Staff has worked with the city attorney and NTN to draft a standard lease agreement which provides for the terms and conditions of the request. The monthly lease payment shall be $31.50. The term of this lease is 29 months in order to coincide with the lessee's office space lease term. The proposed lease agreement was introduced at the Commission's March 26, 2018 meeting and approved as recommended to move the lease agreement forward to the April 9, 2018 meeting. Fiscal effect, the Lakeview Arena Fund will receive $378 in revenue annually. Recommendation, approve the 3-year lease agreement with the Nocamanon Trails Network Council for storage space at Lakeview Arena and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign it. Alternatives, as determined by the commission.
Thank you. We have a motion. Commissioner Plord.
I move that we approve the 3-year lease agreement with Nocamanon Trails Network Council for storage space at Lakeview Arena and authorize the mayor and the clerk to sign it.
Second, Commissioner Frazier.
Second.
Discussion anywhere? None? None? Anybody? All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? Carries 7-0. New business, we have 4 items tonight. First item is Mayor Campana and Commissioner Plord's travel reimbursement. City Clerk, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Background. Mayor Dave Campana and Commissioner Mike Plord attended the annual Michigan Municipal League Conference held in Lansing, Michigan, March 20 to 21st, 2018. The following checks will be reimbursed for travel expenses incurred. Mayor Dave Campana, check number 78537, $58. Commissioner Mike Plord, check number 78573, $58. Fiscal effect, total travel costs are $116. Adequate funds are available within the fiscal year 2018 City Commission travel budget. Recommendation, approve travel reimbursement for Mayor Campana in the amount of $58 and Commissioner Plord in the amount of $58 for the Michigan Municipal League Conference. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Okay, myself and Commissioner Plord will be abstaining from this vote. Do I have a motion? Commissioner Reynolds.
I move that we approve the travel reimbursement for Mayor Campana in the amount of $58 and Commissioner Plord in the amount of $58 for their travel for the Michigan Municipal League Conference.
Is there a second? Commissioner Frazier.
Second.
Discussion. Any?
None.
None? All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? Those in abstention say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Carries 5-2.
I have abstained.
Huh? You've abstained. 5-0. With 2 abstentions. Thank you. Okay, we come to our next business item, new business item, which is Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse and Commissioner Frazier's travel reimbursement.
Thank you, Mayor.
City Clerk.
Background. Mayor Pro Tem Fred Stonehouse and Commissioner Pete Frazier attended the annual Michigan Municipal League Conference held in Lansing, March 20 to 21st, 2018. The following checks will be reimbursed for travel expenses incurred. Mayor Pro Tem Fred Stonehouse, check number 78547, $58. Commissioner Pete Frazier, check number 78588, $496.55. Fiscal effect, total travel costs are $554.55. Adequate funds are available within the fiscal year 2018 City Commission travel budget. Recommendation, approve travel reimbursement for Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse in the amount of $58 and Commissioner Frazier in the amount of $496.55 for the Michigan Municipal League Conference. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you. Commissioner Stonehouse and Commissioner Frazier will abstain on this vote, please. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Reynolds.
I move that we approve the travel reimbursement for Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse in the amount of $58 and Commissioner Frazier in the amount of $496.55 for the Michigan Municipal League Conference.
Do we have a second? Commissioner Smith.
Second.
Discussion?
The only comment is it might seem like strange numbers because we all have $58 and then Pete has a check for about $400. Just for clarification for the public, it's because Pete traveled by himself. So other people traveled in one car and he went alone. So that's why.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Abstaining? Say yes.
Yes.
That passes 5-0-2. Did I say that right?
Correct.
You got it. Okay, our next new business item is the capital improvement plan and budget amendments. City Clerk, could you give us that background?
Thank you, sir. Background. College Avenue was scheduled to be reconstructed in fiscal year 2017-18. However, the future of the old hospital is unknown at this point. Therefore, the city manager is recommending that College Avenue reconstruction project be postponed until a more certain future for the old hospital campus is known, so that an assessment of infrastructure capacity necessity can be completed. The city manager is also recommending that the funds previously allocated for the reconstruction of College Avenue be distributed to the Presque Isle Avenue, 5th Street, and Homestead Street projects, additional unforeseen needs, as well as providing funds for future work at Shiras Park and the recently acquired Lighthouse property. Fiscal effect, no net change in total budgeted funds. Recommendation, concur with the city manager's recommendation and adopt the amendments to the fiscal year 2017-18 capital improvement plan and budget and redistribute $580,020 from the College Avenue reconstruction project, Presque Isle to 7th Street as follows. Number one, $1 million to Lighthouse Enterprise Fund. Number two, $330,020 Shiras Park Restoration Project. Number three, $250,000 to the Presque Isle, 5th Street and Homestead as contingency. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you. Mr. Lutenberg, I believe you want to speak to this?
Yes. Oops. Yes, thank you. Matt Ludenberger, 1406 Garfield Ave, here in Marquette. For the three commissioners who weren't here last week, I'll be completely honest. I accused Mayor Stonehouse of texting while I was talking. I officially do not know if he was texting, but I am in hopes, in full transparency, that this is not a retaliation of that outburst. At the same time, as I stated earlier, I do think that College Ave is being used and utilized currently by a number of our city residents and a number of our local businesses that would benefit because they've been waiting the 5-10 years to get this road redone. At the same time, full transparency, I'm working on turning Marquette into a space hub, I guess. So in that sense, I'm not driving a Tesla down that road. Guaranteed, there's no way I'm driving one of the newer electric vehicles coming off the Ford plant down College Avenue. So in that sense, I can use it as a selling point. So no offense to Mr. Stonehouse or where any of these other funds are going, College Ave being reconstructed would benefit me and tremendously help me in the sales pitch. That being said, I don't care if you put a single dime to it. What I want you to do is to think about all the other programs that were denied last year. We have a all-access, playground that was denied at Presque Isle because we didn't have enough funds to fix the parking lot at Presque Isle. So now Presque Isle Park Advisory Committee has 3 new boards, and we have to figure out a way to get money there to find funds for the park or for the playground to be fixed. Instead, we turned the playground to down at Matson Park because funds were available for Matson Park. Even though Matson Park already has high traffic from your boats, it has a well-traversed marina and park. So it's a very congested area in itself. The funds that are going towards the Lighthouse Fund should be a private entity, just like Moosewood was a private entity, just like Clark's Landing was a private entity. These are things that, even though the city benefits from the tourism that comes through, right now you've got patients who are being rattled when they pull up to the entrance to our hospital. I have a hard time, with all that said though, I have a hard time with any time a city changes a plan. And this is a plan that's been set up. You guys have all devoted your time and efforts to it. It might not be of you directly, but at some point the city dedicated this fund. Please use this fund for what the dedicated funds were made for. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, excuse me. Mr. Verital, you're next.
Frank Jeff Verdo, 350 East Ridge, Marquette. These are my opinions, and the speaker before me made some excellent points. The manager, maybe wisely, is asking to delay the College Avenue reconstruction project until we decide on the repurposing of our current hospital campus. Of course, if we'd undertaken our due diligence ahead of time as recommended, this item wouldn't likely have appeared on tonight's agenda. This does, however, present us with opportunities. March 26, you were reminded that the manager mentioned, quote, trying to shift capital improvement funds to Picnic Rocks and Lighthouse Park from a project we don't need anymore. Which project and how much money? Please ask him, end quote. No one bothered to address this concern, which consequently confused at least one citizen as to whether this is the project that the manager referred to. One can only assume that this is not the project we, quote, don't need anymore, because the street will still need repair once we derive at a reuse for the hospital campus. We still need the project, although it can be delayed, or maybe it can, which is different than not needing the project anymore. Please clarify whether this is the project he spoke of. If not, there may be even more money available. Knowing this and our grant opportunities would help us ascertain the optimal apportionments more effectively. The manager did a nice job detailing his recommended allocations in our agenda supplement. However, $330,020 seems like a drop in the bucket for an erosion control project, just as $250,000 is when divided between 3 streets. We aren't provided details on what work those streets need, so the $250,000 may well be plenty. Of course, the $1 million allocation for Lighthouse Park is welcome, and I'm our most outspoken advocate on getting our park open to its rightful owners. The fact is, $1 million isn't likely needed to fulfill our immediate needs, to remove the fence at the northwest corner, to reroute the North Country Trail in gravel for now, and to make the grounds safe. We may prefer to allocate some of that $1 million for erosion control, all depending upon which grants we're able to receive for which projects. This allocation or reallocation of funds also begs the question as to where the funds might come from once the current hospital site is repurposed and College Avenue is ready for reconstruction.
Okay, do we have a motion? Commissioner Plard.
I move that we concur with the city manager's recommendation and adopt the amendments to the fiscal year 2017-2018 capital improvement plan and budget and redistribute $1,580,020 from the College Avenue reconstruction project, parentheses, Presque Isle to 7th Street, as follows. $1 million to Lighthouse Enterprise Fund. 2, $330,020 to Shires Park Restoration Project. 3, $250,000 to Presque Isle Avenue, 5th Street, and Homestead as contingency.
Thank you. Second, Summer. Commissioner Schlegel.
Second.
Discussion. Plard.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just to point out a couple of things, Mr. Lutenberger, you're part of the reason why this has been changed. And you speak to us every day about changing the plan, and then you speak to us today about having a hard time changing the plan. You've confused me on that at this point. But you have a big project that you want, and you've talked about that many times with this area. It's been spoken to me from a number of people out in public that we shouldn't put money towards College Avenue until the plans of the old hospital are actually in place. And Mr. Verito had mentioned that as well, and also mentions that the city manager shows good sense with that, and I agree with that. The other thing is, if you're interested in what it takes or what's going to be necessary to fix Presque Isle Avenue, 5th Street, and Homestead, that's in the capital improvement plan. So you just really need to look at that, and I'll tell you everything that you need to know. As far as Shires Park Restoration Project is concerned, that money is to get the park open and running for this year. Certainly, it's going to take a lot more money to improve it to where it needs to be improved. But I can tell you that the city offices are looking for grants and are very, very good at getting those grants. And I, for one, as a city commissioner, support all the grants we can get from anywhere. And I encourage our city staff to continue to push for those grants. Do we want to improve Shires Park to the point where it absolutely needs to be and where a lot of people here have stated they want it to be? Yes, absolutely. And I think I know, for speaking for myself as a city commissioner, I want that to happen. There are other projects as well along the lakeshore that pretty much everybody is well aware of. So when you look at this, this is a legitimate reallocation of funds from the budget. It's coming out of the budget, and it's to get things done now, to get things off the ground so that we can start this summer season. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Commissioner Schlegel, anything?
I just want to echo, I think that you put that nicely, Commissioner. Thank you very much. I think it's a proper reallocation of funds here. Basically leave it at that.
Thank you. Commissioner Frazier.
I agree. It's something to look at. It's a good idea to move funds around. It's not we're gonna fix College Avenue eventually. Once we figure out we're gonna do the hospital, it could be ripping it down, maybe same way. We don't know what's gonna happen. It's kind of like a lot of people build a house and they put the driveway in after they build the house. That's very common. You know, most construction guys would rather have the driveway in before, make it easier to get on the property, but most people put the driveway in afterwards. It just makes sense. As far as the playground at Presque Isle, I was on the PIPAC committee back in the day when we came up with this idea, and we originally put it at the island in Moosewood's parking lot, and it had nothing to do with the parking lot. It was just funding and zoning and getting grants, and the playground got moved to Lower Harbor just because Matson Park is out of code. It's not up to code, basically, because it was built years ago. And so the playground PIPAC designed and helped with is now going to be placed at Matson Park, which gets a lot more use than Presque Isle does. But Presque Isle will get a park once Matson Park gets built. So it's in writing. We had our old zoning guys in charge of Parks and Recreation put that in writing. Presque Isle will get a park once, new playground, once Matson Park is done. It's not as good as big grand as like Matson Park, but they'll get a good playground. I think it'd be a great idea.
Commissioner Stonehouse.
Let me just begin by again reaffirming. Allow me to please begin with reaffirming to the city attorney again so the public is fully aware of this. I have had a long relationship with the Maritime Museum and certainly with Lighthouse Point. I do serve on the board of directors of the museum. I receive no financial compensation of any kind at any time and never have. But I would like to confirm with our city attorney that that does not, by our charter, imply that I have any conflict of interest. Is that correct, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, Mr. Stonehouse, the charter is pretty clear. It says no member of the city commission shall vote on any question in which the member has a financial interest other than the common public interest, or on any question concerning such member's own conduct, but on all other questions shall vote when the member's name is called, and if refusing to vote is guilty of misconduct. So you have no financial interest. If you refuse to vote on this motion, you will have committed misconduct under the charter.
Correct. So in other words, I must vote on whatever question comes
You
up
must.
regarding this issue. Thank you very much. If I can ask the city manager if he has any comments in addition to what may have been or rather what is part of the agenda supplement?
Yes, just briefly. First of all, this College Avenue project has been in the capital improvement plan for some time, but it's been part of our normal annual capital improvements based on the needs within the city and the fact that Marquette General or Duke Light Point was at that location. If you're aware of this area, it's between Presque Isle and 7th Street on College, and I would estimate 90% of the property is owned by the hospital. Knowing full well through our communications with the hospital that they are going to be beginning their transition later this fall or early winter to the new facility, it didn't make any sense in my mind to spend $1.5 million on a piece of road which basically would have 90% of it evacuated or no longer used by the hospital. That combined with the fact that if there is reuse for the property, infrastructure changes might be necessary in that reuse, that it would make more sense to combine that infrastructure changes with the reuse with what we're going to do instead of us digging it up now, repairing it at $1.5 million, and then digging it up again in 2 years. Plus, I worry about if there's demolition and things like that, heavy equipment and that kind of stuff being on in our new roadway. And knowing that we do need money for Shirus Park, we do need money for Lighthouse Park, and we need some contingency for 3 other road projects that we have on the books for this summer, that being Presque Isle Avenue, which is a big one, 5th Street, and Homestead. It made sense to allocate that money differently. I would make one further comment that I think it was Mr. Veredo mentioned the road at, or was it you, Matt, that mentioned the road at the island? That road is on the capital improvements to be fixed this summer, so that is still out there. That's it.
May I ask one more question, please? Could you explain so the public understands what an enterprise fund is and
Sure.
why that money is being transferred into an enterprise fund?
Sure. An enterprise fund is basically a fund that accumulates revenue from the park, in this case, from the lighthouse. For example, if we proceed with our plans for the lighthouse to turn it into a revenue-generating entity.
Correction, not the lighthouse.
Lighthouse Park.
Right.
Right.
Okay. But that would be the keeper's house.
Yes. Not the lighthouse per se. Exactly. It would be the station house and the captain's house or the keeper's house. If we turn that into a short-term rental, for example, any other facility into some type of a rental, we'll generate revenue from that. That revenue goes back into a fund to maintain that park. In other words, we raise, the park itself raises its own revenue for refurbishment, improvements, and things of that nature. So Tourist Park acts that way right now within the city, so all the money generated within Tourist Park goes back into maintaining Tourist Park.
Thank you. Nothing further.
For Mr. Lutenberger, I do appreciate your concern for College Avenue. I mean, it's nice that people look out for the streets, but probably in this city, I don't know, the vast majority of them could be redone. So it just becomes a matter of priorities. And as the city manager said, priorities shifted. I mean, we have to get Shirus Park open. We have to me, Presque Isle Avenue is just a horrible road. It's worse, as bad as any road in the city. So it just makes sense to transfer our money, and everybody wants to see the lighthouse property up and running. And we don't have the money for it yet. So, say again?
School buses. I see school buses.
Okay, please. So I think I'm satisfied with this recommendation, this motion. I think it's being wisely used. You know, we only got so much money. You know, if someone were to drop some money on us, we could easily do everything everybody wants, but we don't have that luxury. So I think this is a good motion. Any other comments? Okay, all in favor? Say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carries 7-0. Our last business item, new business item of the evening is the purchase of property from Marquette Public Service Garage. City Clerk, would you please give us that information?
Thank you, Mayor. Background. As a result of the preferred alternative being chosen for the proposed transportation system improvements related to the relocation of the former Marquette General Hospital, various properties or portions thereof were identified as needing to be acquired for the project. City staff has reached an agreement with Marquette Public Service Garage for the purchase of a portion of their property at 919 West Baraga Avenue, and the city attorney has prepared the attached purchase agreement for commission approval. Fiscal effect: an agreed upon cash payment of $500 will be made and funded through the Brownfield Plan for the DLP Marquette General Replacement Hospital. This plan was approved by the Marquette City Commission on October 27, 2014. Funds for this project were obligated in the plan for this project. Recommendation: approve the purchase of a portion of property at 919 West Baraga Avenue from Marquette Public Service Garage per the terms of the purchase agreement. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Do we have a motion? Commissioner Frazier.
I make a motion that we approve the purchase a portion of property from 918 West Baraga Avenue from Marquette Public Service Garage for the terms of the purchase agreement.
Would someone like to second that? Commissioner Reynolds.
Second.
Discussion?
Can Mr. Manager maybe explain what we're going to do with the money? If that's the project, like redo McClellan Avenue, just kind of get people a better idea of what you're going to do with redoing that area, that street.
Sure, this is the next phase in our road projects related to the relocation of the Duke Life Point Hospital on Baraga. Part of the environmental impact, meaning how traffic flows around that facility, involves McClellan and Baraga. And the next phase requires us to widen McClellan, put in a center turn lane, some other turn lanes on Baraga, and I think there's a bike path in there too that is going to be on the west side of McClellan. So, and that carries on down to some improvements we're going to be making at Washington and McClellan as well. So it's all related to the hospital traffic flow.
Any other comment? Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? Carries 7-0. Now we come to the last public comment of the evening. Again, a chance for residents to address the commission. At the front podium, if you would. You have 3 minutes. We need your name and address. I'm going to open public comment. Does anybody wish to address the commission?
Good evening. Margaret Brum, 404 East Magnetic. I just wanted everybody to know that I will be taking advantage of the city manager's public meeting hours on Wednesday at 10 a.m. in the Peter White Public Library. Well, I wasn't planning on taking the entire hour and a half, but okay. Funny, I stand up and people say, "How long are you going to talk?" What I'm going to be sharing with him is my review of the invoices that I obtained under Freedom of Information Act, as well as various emails that he was getting and receiving in the last 2 months is complete. And I have recommendations based on what I saw and what I didn't see in those documents as to ways the city could handle, keep track of, basically deal with their money in such a way as to be more financially beneficial to the city, as well as be more standardized in terms of... I'm not going to speak for an hour and a half, I promise, but I still got an hour, 1:52 left.
My timer went off. I thought you were done.
Okay, let me start again. There's 1,000 different ways that I could have done this, and I thought about putting it in slides, but I'm a patent attorney, and with a patent attorney, you just get going with 50 slides. And I would be happy to do 150 slides. On the other hand, I'm relatively new at giving feedback like this, and I thought Mr. City Manager Angeli's public hours would be a perfect forum in which to bring up the issues. I also am a strong proponent of transparency and communications, so I wanted to make sure everybody in the room knew. I believe City Manager Angeli's forum is open to everyone, including anybody who sits at the podium. So I just wanted you to know, and again, I'm not planning on speaking for an hour and a half. I will have a few bits of paper with me, not the stack that I got, and it will start with a summary of what I saw and what I didn't see. And thank you for your time, and I would hope that as many as possible of you would like to hear this, but if it's just the city manager, I promise you that he will not be bored. And I promise you that, City Manager Angeli, you will not be bored. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Frank Jeff Erdo with 350 East Ridge Marquette. These are my opinions. March 26th, the chair ragged on me for calling out the technician for not showing a full view of the wheelchair, a man in a wheelchair. The chair placed greater importance on discrediting his enemy than taking responsibility for what was ultimately his failure to provide reasonable accommodation for a person with a disability. The camera angle has since been adjusted. It's hard to believe that the north camera neither swivels nor zooms out, and in no way did I base my comments solely on that one incident. April 11, 2016, just after asking this chair to look up, I said, "For months our meeting videos have not contained close-ups of the individual members. The manager said the camera works fine and he'll speak to the operator. Sometimes it's important to analyze your expressions. Please record our meetings properly." June 1, 2016, I said, "Close-ups of the members are still generally not provided. Whether it's the equipment or the operator, please get a handle on this." September 26, 2016, I said, "For our last meeting, close-ups still weren't provided during your closing comments despite previous requests." May 30, 2017, I said, "Whether it's the equipment or the technician, the record of our meetings has been pitiful for too long. Please fix this expensive equipment and train someone to provide close-ups of the members." Amazingly, the requested close-ups were still not being provided right as the chair ostracized me on March 26th. More insulting was his utterance that I'm not the kind of person who apologizes, which our record shows was a blatant lie. Last January 8th, I apologized for reserving time on the wrong item. Last May 8th, I apologized to appellants for misstating a dollar amount, which was correct on my draft. December 12, 2016, I apologized to anyone who believed me for suggesting that Mr. Campana was any better than another unpopular commissioner. October 11, 2016, I apologized for recommending his replacement, even though I could not retract the comment. October 26, 2015, I apologized to the public for the chair putting me in a position to attack his credibility. February 23 and March 9, 2015, I apologized for commenting on a consent item which appeared in the packet before the item I'd reserved time for. June 9, 2014, I apologized to the public for lashing out at a good man, namely Mr. Campana, for his lousy performance, but again with no retractions. He had nerve to publicly mischaracterize me that way. Through the years, I've offered to apologize publicly to anyone whom I've criticized unduly. Members don't take the bait because they're usually checkmated by the second round, inundated with additional information that proves my points, like tonight. You're not expected to absorb every spoken word any better than I could not. However, please do your homework before lashing out, such as last April when the chair refused to apologize for rebuking my correct statement that more than a few hours per month are required to serve on the Planning Commission. When checkmated, he answers with silence.
Anyone else?
Matt Ludenberger, 1406 Garfield Ave here in the city of Marquette. I guess, let me just finish by saying, or let's start by saying this. If I'm called out in your comments, I would like the option of replying or at least addressing. And so I'm sorry if I screamed, but I do think the College Ave reconstruction would have benefited more than just the city population. The school buses in particular go up and down that road. And for that matter, being fixed during their move could help their moving trucks. Being in construction during their move might not help them, so I understand that kind of timing aspect of things. I get it. At the same time, you approved it. I'm asking why not just even $100,000 or $200,000 to fix the potholes that are on that road? Why absolutely zero money? Especially when you've got more money coming in to be devoted to other projects on McClellan. Again, these are all things that an existing road. But okay, that's all I got to say about the road, because frankly, we have a lot of roads in this town, and you have allocated funds for them, $1.5 million in specifics for this road. Okay, so again, I've been up here before. I've heard other comments about fluoride in the water. Here is my 30-second space-based knowledge of why we don't use fluoride in the Habitats for Mars exploration and testing. Fluoride is an industrial killer. It will degrade and destroy the bacteria that is formed in the iron pipes that are found throughout the U.S. It is a valid and necessary chemical to kill the Legionnaire's virus that is very common. That being said, we in the UP have very little in forms of phosphorus and other chemicals that are coming into our water supply. We have very fresh, clean water coming off of the lake. That water being treated with fluoride for the vulnerable populations of elderly, meaning anybody that lives in that whole high-rise building down the street, to new babies being born at the hospital. So there's a reason there's filtration systems in most of those big systems. The amount of fluoride going into individual homes can vary by 1/1,000,000th of a percent, which is enough to affect the older population and the young babies if untreated. The reason we don't use it in our systems is we use a distilling process to create water for explorers. That system works really well for up to 500 people. Fluoride in the water is necessary for community services. It may not be as highly concentrated as we have here in the city, though. You may be able to address it and reduce it by a couple thousand pounds. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Michael Tricky, 811 Pine Street here in Marquette. I want to apologize, Mr. Mayor, I was late getting here. I do intend to accept appointment to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, so got here at 6:20. I was coming from Bloomington, Minnesota, son's wedding. I got stuck with babysitting 2 twins, 3 years old and a 6-year-old, and they didn't get up early today, so I left late, so I apologize. But while I sat here and I watched you in action, I've been to many meetings over the years, I want to thank you for the work you do for our community. And I want to pay a compliment to Tom Florick and his crew. As about a month ago, I came home and discovered my water line had failed. I didn't know what to do. I called the police. They said, we know what to do. Within probably 20 minutes, there was a crew out there, and they capped it off, figured it out. And I was able to go to Mr. Baldini's house, the late Mr. Baldini's home, and be able to get water so that I have water. So I'm glad to live here in Marquette. Thank you for everything that you do. And whatever I need to do to take an oath of office or something, I will do that at anyone's pleasure another time, or if tonight's okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you stick around, we'll give you the oath when we're all done.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Seeing no further comments, we're going to close public comment. We're going to move to comments from the commission. We'll start with Commissioner Reynolds.
I have no comments this evening.
Commissioner Plard.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to thank the commission for the lively debate and discussion that we've had today. It's obvious that everybody does do their homework and everybody does have opinions, and those opinions can differ, but it's also very good to have the kind of discussions that we've had, and I do appreciate that, and thank you very much. That's all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Stonehouse.
Let me just cover one quick topic, and that's fluoride. We are a political board. We make policy for the city of Marquette. We are a governing board. We do government things, but we're not a science board. So when you ask somebody, a member of the audience would ask us to evaluate a science question, is fluoride good or is fluoride bad? We certainly are not equipped to do that. There are organizations within the country that are. There's organizations within the state and the county that are. So really an issue like fluoride, rather than address it here, while we can eliminate it, we have the power to do that from our water system, we don't have the basis to do that without having the advice of proper science authority. I would suggest, for example, the Marquette County Health Department would be a great place for people to start that may have strong feelings on this. Likewise, the State Health Department. But certainly that's a much better forum for that kind of discussion and that kind of presentation of data than it would be to our political board here. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
No comment.
Commissioner Frazier?
We had a long fee discussion tonight. I think it was longer than we thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be just done business, but I think it's a good discussion. I'm glad you brought it up, Mr. Mayor. I know fees aren't popular with anybody. Whatever fees there are, it's not popular. It's like kind of like businesses downtown want to get a fee to sell stuff, which is fine. Just like my friends that are boaters in the marina, we have a short season. They get maybe 3 months of boating. They pay up a lot of money, but then we look at their fees come back to help paying for a new marina if it ever comes to that point, which is a good thing. As far as fluoride in the water, I've talked in my own time. I've talked to my family dentist, who's been my dentist for years. I've talked to my family doctor, who's got young children, and they all say there's no problems with fluoride. It's a safe amount. And they said, go on the internet and look up stuff. You can look up all good things and bad things. Whatever you want to look up, there's bad things and good things about everything. I said, look at a study from the University of Michigan that they did on their own time that says the benefits and the negatives of fluoride. So they said it's good to go.
Thank you. Commissioner Schlegel?
I think one area, since we're taking and reallocating some funds from College Avenue, it's obviously, with the traffic for the hospital and the university and everything there, I'm sure that the city will do a nice job of filling those potholes if there are any, paying attention to that. In all honesty, I wish people would slow down a little bit more going through there. They put the cones out. People are trying to cross the streets, and you really have to pay attention because people are not paying attention, looking for you crossing that crosswalk there between the two buildings. So, not to say, we're not trying to make a speed bump in there by any means, but the fact is that this decision I'm excited about. I think it was the right one, and at the same time, I'm sure the city will take care of as much as they can within their means with the any seasonal issues that might come upon that stretch of road. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I'd just like to again thank Chairman Dan Emmendorfer for giving us his presentation tonight on the Investment Advisory Board. They control and watch over a large amount of money, and they seem to always do a good job, and that's very important to our city. Second, I'm loaded down with fluoride information, but I'm not going to give it to you. You've heard me enough. I will only say that tonight, commissioners, you got a packet from the county health department. And I would say tomorrow when you're eating your sugar pops, take a look at this packet and read it, because it's quick reading. It lists all the myths that are said about fluoride and the truths about fluoride. And it's a quick reading, easy reading, good reading, informative reading. I have had conversation with the director of the county health board, the health department, and the medical director, and I've also talked to the head of the Superior Dental Association, which represents all the dentists in this county and I believe Delta. And I mean, they're 100% for fluoride. Fluoride is not a chemical. Fluoride is a mineral. Fluoride is found in all naturally occurring water everywhere, just not to the degree that it's useful. And I'll stop right there. But City Manager, it's your turn.
Just the one thing, as Ms. Brum mentioned, I have my community office hours Wednesday, 10 o'clock, Peter White Public Library, and normally the mayor and another commissioner do attend, so there usually are other representatives there. And Jen doesn't know it yet, but she's going to be there too. So.
It won't be boring, I promise you.
Is that it? We are adjourned.